Good morning to you, Brisbane. You are going to love it. Right now it's 13 degrees, although there is an afternoon shower on the way and a top of 24. Carl?
Looks pretty good, the River City. Well, let's take a look at what's making news in the papers, and it's all about the budget. First, the Courier Mail calls it Swan's $58 billion shuffle. The Daily Telegraph points out people will need to work longer and harder, and the Adelaide Advertiser shows Wayne Swan as Bob the Builder with his $22 billion infrastructure spending spree. Can he fix it? And the Hobart Mercury is calling it Wayne's World of Pain. Joining us to discuss the federal budget, Shadow Treasurer Joe Hockey. Good morning to you, Joe.
Good morning, Carl.
Big night for you too. What do you think of the budget?
Well, there's some good things there. I think it's good to see the pension increase. That's what we tried to get up last year, but failed. And I think it's good to have some money spent on infrastructure now, but it's now the biggest debt in Australia's modern history and the biggest deficit in modern Australian history, and they've lost control of the nation's finances.
Well, Wayne Swan says it's easy to be critical. He says you and the coalition need to man up. Take a look at this.
Well, the pressure's really on the Liberals because they've got this con job going on deficit and debt. They would have to borrow as much as we are borrowing because of the revenue downgrades. And if they weren't going to borrow that money, what they'd have to do is savagely increase taxes right now or savagely cut services right now, which would deepen and lengthen a recession. About time they got real.
OK, you're going to get real?
I think he's living in Wayne's world. I think he's in his own little TV show there. Look, you know what? The most upsetting thing about this is that there is reckless spending. Last night he announced $22 billion of new infrastructure spending. That's the same as the cash handed out over the last few months by the Rudd government. Two-thirds of the debt that Kevin Rudd's accrued is in fact new spending. And the fact is that they've got no control. They've lost control of the budget. They've not only spent all the proceeds of the last mining boom, they're mortgaging the next mining boom. And they've got no plan for recovery. And the best way to do it, Carl, is to grow the pie. It is to provide incentives, real incentives for small business in particular. The engine room of the economic recovery is going to be small business.
Well, are you going to provide, Joe, any details on this, on the specific nature in which you would stimulate the economy? There was some incentive for small business in terms of the budget last night, but you're talking about a pie. That's a whole lot more that is needed to be done.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Look, we will have a detailed plan. Look, judge us on what we've done for Australia and not just on what we say we're going to do. When we left 18 months ago, the budget was in surplus. There was no government debt. In fact, we were ahead of the rest of the world, and there was only 4% unemployment. Today we're going towards 1 million unemployed, the biggest budget deficit in modern Australian history, and the biggest debt. And they've got no plan to pay it off.
Well, you can't blame Labor for the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression.
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. Look, Carl, it's interesting you say that because the Reserve Bank said last Friday this downturn in Australia will not be as severe as the 1990 recession. That was the Reserve Bank last Friday. One of the reasons is we went into this in far better shape because we paid off all of Labor's debt last time. But now they're spending, they're giving drunken sailors a bad name. They are spending on a scale that we've never seen before in Australia. Never seen before. Spend, 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 and what have Australians got for it?
OK, so what are you going to do when it goes to the Senate? Are you going to vote against it?
Well, we will be very reasonable. We will be very reasonable. I think we've got to look at each measure carefully, consider the true impact on the budget. And, you know, I give you this pledge. We are so shocked at the size of the debt and the deficit and the massive ball and chain that is around the leg of every Australian as we get out of this problem with this debt, that we will take a very responsible approach.
All right, so you're going to allow some things through then?
Yeah, absolutely. We will be very responsible, which is in stark contrast to them. I know. You remember they opposed us on privatisation, on tax reform.
But see, you're in a situation. Sorry to interrupt, Joe. You're in a situation where you're being highly critical of them, but you're going to allow them through the Senate. Those changes.
Well, you know, because they're total savings. You know, they're spinning this line that it's a tough budget. It is for those that might be affected. But let me tell you, Carl, all of their savings, all of their tough measures represent just 1% of the money they are spending in this budget. 1%. Imagine a Channel 9 if you had to have real cutbacks and they said, look, we're going to have a really tough time at Channel 9, we're just cutting 1% of all expenditure. I mean, everyone would laugh. Well, that's what Wayne Swan and Kevin Rudd are doing. They're talking tough, but it's 1% of all the money they are spending. Nothing.
OK, when's Malcolm going to front up? We haven't seen him for about 24 hours.
Oh, no, he's been around, I tell you. This is the traditional process. So don't start this. I know where you're heading, right?
Yeah.
Don't start this.
You like it, though, don't you? Huh?
He gives a big speech tomorrow night, as
I know
is
you
the
like
usual.
it. All right, Joe. Good to talk to you. Thank you very much for your
Anytime,
time.
Carl. Thanks.
Good on you. Thank you, Lisa.
This is called a pot being stirred. News, sport and weather are next. And then Footloose in real life. We'll have the story of the boy banned from school for dancing.
On a steamy new 20 to 1, they get